because this is what evil looks like.
Hamas's invasion of Israel is causing a demonic reaction all across America. As of the recording of this video, the death toll in Israel is over 900. They're calling this Israel's 9/11 for a variety of reasons, but when you factor in the adjustment for population, it's actually much worse. Now, this is already an extremely tragic situation, but what makes the situation even worse is the response for many people in America in support of Hamas in this situation. Everyone from Mia Khalifa to Sneeko to even an MSNBC reporter calling out the network for their coverage of this issue.
I am angry with the world that allowed the dehumanization of Israelis and sanitized the terrorism of Hamas. I must say, I love this show, but I've got to ask, who is writing the scripts?
It takes a lot of courage to say that on live TV. And in this video, we're going to get into the underlying paradigm that drives this sort of visceral reaction to what we're seeing happen in Israel. But first, to better articulate why all of this is so evil, let's first hear from some inside sources connected directly to Israel and Palestine on the ground. All right, guys, so check this out. This is from Channel 4 News. I want you to pay very close attention to what's said here and then the subsequent interview.
Anger at Israel's bloody and oppressive occupation and blockade of Gaza helped fuel the awful violence inflicted by Palestinian militants.
Helped fuel the anger and violence by Palestinian militants. Listen to the language, okay?
Anger at their brutality will fuel the deadly response Israel is now inflicting on Gaza.
Secunda Kamani there, and some of the footage in his report was filmed by our colleague Youssef Hamash, who's inside Gaza. Well, I'm now joined by Fleur Hassan Nahum, who's the Deputy Mayor of Jerusalem. When you look at the number of deaths, the number of people held hostage still, do you believe that the intelligence and security services have this situation under control or not?
So this is the Deputy Mayor of Jerusalem. But listen to the first thing that she points out right after she answers the question.
Well, they certainly didn't yesterday morning when there was an attack in 7-8 different points on a border which is supposed to be properly secured. It's a border of a country going into another country because Israel, as your reporter misinformed, the public has not been in Gaza since 2005. You can talk about a blockade, but you can't talk about an occupation. Israel left Gaza in 2005. They've had free and fair elections, at least once. Hamas was elected by the people over Fatah, and they've been ruling the Gaza Strip for the last 10, 11 years.
So the way this is being framed by the media right now is that because of Israel's mistreatment of the occupation over Gaza, of the prison over Gaza, therefore militants came in and did what they did. Okay, so the language and the meandering around this stuff is so asinine and backwards, okay? And the Deputy Mayor of Jerusalem, rightfully so, points out the fact that Israel bounced from Gaza in 2005. And in 2007, Gaza elected their own government, which was, punchline, Hamas. Hamas, which is recognized by multiple countries around the world as a terroristic organization. That is who came. So what we're doing is we are conflating false equivalencies. These are not the same thing. Israel saying we're out because we don't want to deal with Gaza Strip no more. And by the way, none of the other Arab nations there want anything to do with it. Egypt isn't very helpful. Syria isn't helpful, right? Everyone wants to complain about what's going on there, but no one's actually helping the people. And then the people themselves are disenfranchised and hurt. And we're going to talk about that on the after party. I just did an interview with a reporter on the ground there talking about life for people in Gaza, but specifically for Christians in Gaza. Yes, there are Christians in Gaza, believe it or not. So this entire situation is a mess top to bottom, but the way it's repeatedly framed by the media is militants or freedom fighters. That's how you're seeing the protests in New York, in Toronto, right? So on and so forth. And so this stuff is just not true. Now, check out the response from the Palestinian representative when he is confronted in this conversation. And this is, by the way, the opposing party of Hamas. This is who Hamas beat in their quote unquote fair and free elections of 2007, the party of Fatah. Okay. And he comes in to do an interview here, and listen to his response to this.
Well, here with me now is the Palestinian ambassador to the UK, Hussam Zomlot, who's a senior member of Fatah, the party which controls the Palestinian Authority and is a political rival of.
This is who they wanted to win in Gaza. This is who America wanted to win. These folks are not radicalized. They're not driven by religion or anything like that. This is the secular arm. This is who runs the West Bank. Life is very different. Okay, for Palestinians in Gaza, Palestinians in the West Bank. This is that party, the Fatah party. Okay, so this is not Hamas. And listen to what happens in this interview.
Hamas. Ambassador, you heard there about the people missing, the hostages taken, the mothers, the elderly women, children taken hostage. Will you condemn this atrocity by Hamas?
Pretty straightforward question, right? Will you condemn this atrocity by Hamas? I think this is a pretty straightforward
I have had
question.
this question as a first question in every interview I did, and I refuse to answer that question because it is the reason why we as an international community have failed to depict the situation as it is. The business.
So he said, we failed to answer the question because we failed to depict this situation how it is. Okay. So notice what's happening. Notice that moderates, quote unquote, secular folks, quote unquote, are not condemning it. Many of them who are, quote unquote, peaceful are celebrating it. Okay, they're celebrating it. This is crazy. So this is a moderate, the opposition, and he can't even bring himself to condemn what Hamas, again, a terrorist organization. Now, I got a Bible passage that we're going to go to here in a minute that I think totally encapsulates a lot of what's going on. And no, it's not some end times prophecy view about how this stuff has to be fulfilled in order for I'm not on that dispensational train with what I'm talking about here. Okay, so listen to what he says here.
Of always being obsessed with blaming the victim, the occupied, the colonized, the besieged.
Blaming the victim, the occupied, the colonized, and the besieged. Listen to the language here.
When in fact, I didn't see you asking her to condemn. I didn't see you.
But I
did not hear your first question to condemn the killing of an entire family that your reporter.
No, I tackled her on the people who are losing their lives in Gaza, and I'm asking you about the people who have lost their lives, the Israelis who have lost their lives.
It's tragic. It's tragic.
But he won't condemn it.
And you condemn that.
But he won't condemn it.
It's tragic.
Atrocity.
And this has.
Notice, it's tragic, but he won't condemn it. It's tragic, but he won't condemn it. Isn't that interesting? Now, what's at play here? What's at play here? Before I go to the Bible verse, let me explain something to you guys. I am not one that thinks that Israel is without any critique. It's never been my position as of recently, because why? I'm Armenian and I understand what's happening in Azerbaijan right now in Artsakh and the Nagorno-Karabakh region, and Israel supported that. So I am not one of those Christians that's like, Israel is 100% right for 100% of the time. People in Israel aren't even like that. Okay, so what's happening here is a paradigm and a worldview that is completely anchored on a oppressor and oppressed paradigm. Remove all history, remove all context, remove everything that's been going on here, remove the complicated geopolitical nature of this, and what it comes down to is people who are on the side of being, quote unquote, oppressed are justified in doing whatever heinous atrocity they feel like doing. And those actions can't be condemned because we have to, quote unquote, free Palestine. Friends, hear me loud and clear. This is demonic and satanic. If you can look at what's happening in Israel outside of the multi-layered and the complicated nature of it, which we're going to get into on the after party, okay? If you could look at what's happening in Israel and look at innocent families, look at people who were at a music festival, a peace music festival, ironically enough, people that would probably say free Palestine, right? If you could look at that and say, oh, well, you know, it's the violence is the voice of the oppressed. This isn't just in the Middle East. This is a paradigm here and now that if someone falls in the class of oppressed versus oppressor, that the oppressed can do whatever they want. And it's just, you just got to understand. We saw a small glimpse of this. We saw a small glimpse of it post the BLM situation in America when something tragic happened. George Floyd, awful. Police reform happened because of it. Body cams were advanced because of it. Okay? Terrible. the response of rioting, of small businesses being destroyed, right? And the media coping and saying, the politicians coping and saying, it's okay, they're oppressed, you don't understand. It's okay, they're oppressed, you don't understand. The world is, and so what do you expect when people are so oppressed that they have to go and be terrorists? That's the logic? Because there's quote unquote oppression, then it's all, you could 1,000 terrorists can come in and they're freedom fighters? As the people in America are chanting, as gays for Palestine are chanting, there's no Palestinians for gays though, mind you. Right? That's the brain rot that's happening in the West. And it's utterly disgusting and satanic and demonic, and I'm using those words carefully. Okay? This paradigm is pervasive and it's everywhere. Okay? So there's nothing wrong with protesting. There's nothing wrong with protesting. When you channel things into violence and then you justify said violence because one group to you is oppressed and the other group is not oppressed, you've completely gone off the rails. You've completely gone off the rails. And this is, so we're seeing this stuff come out of Harvard, petitions being signed in Harvard, all these different things. And so when we look at the scriptures, there's no oppressed and oppressor in the scriptures. There is God and there's broken people. There's good and there's evil. There is no, we're going to have hierarchies of oppression. And based on where someone is, they are then justified in terroristic violence against other people. Okay? This is crazy. And it's the overflow of a worldview that's combining postmodernism and let people be whatever they want to be and quote unquote metamodernism. Okay? So they moved away from modernity into metamodernism, into a complete miscalculation of what barbaric people in these parts of the world are capable of. Israel's the only country in the Middle East where democratic elections are happening. Israel's the only country in the Middle East where the Christian population is increasing. Okay? So I got one Bible verse for you guys that I really want you guys to take in, okay, because I think it totally summarizes this. Isaiah 50, verse 20. Woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness, who put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. Woe to those. Woe to those who call evil good and good evil. Okay? If you are justifying what happened in Israel because of a 100-year conflict, that, to be honest, most of you aren't nowhere near equipped to even have those conversations. If you're justifying these things because the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, and therefore terrorism is okay, you need to repent. You need to repent and believe in Jesus, because that's not it. That is not it. That is demonic. That is satanic. Calling evil good and good evil is demonic and satanic, and this stuff has to stop. I don't care who's doing it. This is dangerous, and it's going to be more and more pervasive in the West. We're only seeing a slither of this. I promise you this sort of stuff is going to come over here. There's already people celebrating this stuff in American streets now, in New York City, in Times Square now, calling them freedom fighters, people that went in and did unspeakable things to women, children, and the elderly. This is awful. So let's be praying for the people of Israel. Let's be praying for the Palestinians that are going to have, especially in Gaza. It's gonna be rough, okay? And we're going to be talking about more of this on the after party. So make sure you stick around for that, all right?